Hello, everyone. Welcome to our members and guests to our first DIA webinar of 2023. I hope everyone's year is off to a great start. My name is Maria Gelanides, and I am this year's president of the DIA. The two key mandates of the Digital Imaging Association are to provide education and networking opportunities for our members. I hope you find the educational aspect worthwhile, and we invite your feedback. Our membership is comprised of pre-press, printers, packaging converters, designers, advertisers, print buyers, equipment, and consumable manufacturers and vendors. If you are with us as a guest, please consider joining the Digital Imaging Association. Today's session is an example of the high caliber meetings we run. If you would like more information on membership, please contact either myself or Mark McLeod at 416-254-4941 or mark@digitalimagingassociation.com. Like most trade associations today, financial stability does not come from the membership revenues alone. And so we turn to the vendors, suppliers to support our goals. We're honored to continue to receive the support recognition of the DIA's contribution to the growth and development of the graphics industry from the following companies. Our platinum sponsors: AGFA, Asia Pulp and Paper, Canon, Durst, HP, Konica Minolta, Spicers, and Trinet Global Logistics. Our gold sponsors: Adobe, Fujifilm, Graphics Canada, Heidelberg, Kodak, and Kongsberg Precision Cutting Systems. And our silver sponsor, Sydney Stone. A huge thank you to all our sponsors. Please consider these companies and their demonstrated support of the industry when making your purchasing decisions. Technology for this webinar has been generously provided by HP. At this time, I'd like to introduce our moderator for today. Stephen Longmire is the National Sales Manager at Sydney Stone, a silver level DIA sponsor. Stephen's role includes researching new product lines and manufacturers to distribute, setting pricing structures, managing the partner program, and conceiving and implementing marketing initiatives to support sales efforts. Stephen has served on the DIA board for 6 years, including the last 2 as president. Stephen, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you very much, Maria. Today's topic is think like a hacker. So how many printers believe they won't be the target of malicious cyber activity? And how many employees believe it's part of their job to protect confidential data at work? How many organizations are not offering security awareness training for their staff? Because hackers never give up. Your company is completely vulnerable to one wrong click. Using security awareness to build strong cybersecurity into your organizational culture is crucial to keep sensitive data safe. Our keynote presenter is David Mauro, Regional Strategic Partner, of Central US, all covered IT services from Konica Minolta. David has worked in the cybersecurity industry for 24 plus years. He has served as CIO and Managing Director for private and public organizations with a background in risk management, legal compliance, and finance. David holds a Bachelor of Arts from Knox College and a doctorate from Loyola University. He has served as a security and technology consultant director for numerous clients in the education, government, financial, healthcare, insurance, as well as manufacturing industries. David and his team are part of federal law enforcement InfraGuard, a partnership between the FBI and members of the private sector for the protection of US critical infrastructure. Also joining us today is Mark Moser. Mark is part of the all covered security team and has been an advisor for security for over 10 years. Mark and David are both part of the InfraGuard, the public-private coalition with the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security to coordinate efforts to protect citizens of North America. As always, I'd like to encourage our attendees virtually to please submit any questions they have for either of our panelists today during the presentation, and I'll direct them accordingly. If it's an open-ended question, I'll pose it to both gentlemen as a whole. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to David. David, please take it away.
Thank you so much. I wish you could join me in all of my Zoom meetings and just introduce me like that. That was really great. No, we're really very, very grateful for being able to be here today. The Digital Imaging Association is a wonderful organization. It's a great association. And thank you to HP for providing the technology. We're honored to be a part of it. Again, throughout this session, we want this to be interactive. We're not just going to sit here and lecture people. We're going to show some video where we want you to think about it. We want everybody to chime in. There is no such thing as a dumb question. If it's an obvious question and you don't want to ask it, please err on the side of asking it. Okay. It opens things up for discussion and we all learn more. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we can begin. You guys able to see my screen there?
Yes.
Okay, so when we say think like a hacker, what do we mean, right? So, and why do we do these? So we've been providing these sessions across North America for over 10 years. We've done them alongside federal law enforcement, members of the Department of Homeland Security, local field agents of the FBI. This is the content that is developed through federal law enforcement as well as through leaders in cybersecurity today, because it changes so quickly. Because we all attend webinars and we all listen to a lot of information. If we leave without remembering anything, take away these things, okay? First, security is all of our responsibility. Okay, we all have a brand. You each have an individual brand. Your family has a brand. And I know that's what you care about. So pay attention for that reason. When we work at an organization, we serve that brand, right? And whether that organization markets it well or not, every organization, government, education, private sector, you name it, they all have a brand, okay? And the responsibility for security it's not just the IT team. And if you learn anything today or understand any aspect, please understand that every single time we get online, we are putting ourselves, our families, and our organization's brand at risk. And so to keep security top of mind and to change our behavior just incrementally every day is really how this is going to change the tide and change the trajectory of the way cybercrime works today. I know you all see the news, you all see social media. Cyber criminals are winning. Okay, if this were a sports game, it's about 1,500 to 2. Okay, we are outnumbered, outmanned, out-resourced, and again, they only have to be right once. Your organization, no matter how small, no matter how large, always has to be right. You always have to be defending. Understanding the mind of a hacker is really key. Understanding why each of us is a target is really critical. Understanding how they do it so we know how to protect ourselves is important. And then understanding that not all breaches are equal, meaning if they get in and we're able to stop them, or if they get in and we catch them soon enough and they're not able to access enough critical information, then it's not much of a data breach. It may not even be something that needs to be reporting. And at the end of the day, we do these for one reason. We want to keep you out of the news, right? We all want to be in the news for a new product line, a new product launch, a new office that's opening, good things that are happening, right? We don't want to be in the news ever for a data breach. And then how do we reduce risks? So we're going to walk through that. And let's understand our terminology first. People throw around the term hacker. Well, hacking is not bad. Okay, being a hacker is not bad. In fact, some of the best cybersecurity leaders are hackers. Okay, when we think of what a hacker mind is, it's that reverse engineering. It's when they see a great product, right? When they see that new refrigerator over at the department store and it has basically an iPad on the front, right? We see it and we're like, oh, that's really cool. I can keep track for my groceries. I can look at things like that. I can watch a YouTube video while I'm cooking. We see that a hacker's mind is, how do I open the garage door with that? How do I start my car from that iPad, right? They reverse engineer things. It's how they break things down and they build it back together. Everybody that sells a software employs hackers. Konica Minolta employs hackers. We do it all covered. They're ethical penetration testers, right? They are people that find and exploit vulnerabilities so that we can fix them before we release a product out there, right? We have to know that it's secure. How do we say it's secure? We can't have somebody from a spreadsheet just say, well, it looks like it's compliant. No, we have to have people try and break it first and then fix those vulnerabilities so that it's secure. That's really the mind of a hacker. When we talk about being aware of what the media calls hackers, right? We think of a hacker traditionally as what, Mark? How would we?
You always classify it as that kid in a hoodie, and he's in his mom's basement, and he's banging on a keyboard, and he's trying to get your password, and he's writing code, drinking Red Bull. That's a hacker, right?
Right, exactly. Well, that's not a hacker. When we talk about hackers today, what we're talking about are not the engineers, not the reverse engineers, not the people that are ethical. We're talking about threat actors. We're talking about criminal adversaries. And what you'll learn today is they're very, very well organized, and they're very, very well funded, which is part of the reason why it's very similar to organized crime. And law enforcement and the private sector have been getting their heads wrapped around this and trying to combat this. And the statistics are unbelievable. So, for example, there's a million statistics out there. The important ones we're going to mention today. The first is shocking, and that is this. When a criminal adversary, we're going to call him a hacker, but we all know what we mean when we say that. When a hacker gets in to our networks, to our company, to see our email, to read our personal information, to see our texts on our phone, to see things that we otherwise believe are private. They are in there for, on average, between 3 and 6 months at the low end before anybody knows about it. That is according to all of the data breaches that happened in 2021, 2020, 19, and before. It's close to 6 months on average. What that means, that's like somebody having your wallet and using your credit cards for more than 6 months before you even know the credit card is missing and can call and do anything about it. And guess what? You're liable for all the charges. That's what's really happening. The other issue is this. Of all of the data breaches that happen, we think hackers are using these sophisticated codes. They're cracking in. We need more infrastructure. We need more systems, bigger firewalls, more robust things. No, we don't. We're the problem. 83% of all breaches are because of us. They're because of everybody that gets online at work or at home, or mixes work at home, or saves a company document in a private drive and those drives get breached, or we use bad passwords. 83% of all the data breaches rest on us. And when we mentioned that it was getting more organized and that it was well-funded, it all started around 2011. If you look at all of the news media, we heard about a data breach maybe once a year or twice a year before 2011. In 2011, cyber criminals began to productize the malware, right? Malware is just a series of codes, right? It's code. It's letters, numbers, hashtags, right? And symbols. That's it. That's all it is. And it can be done to run things like Zoom, like we're doing right now, or it can be done to damage things, right? Just by changing the letters and the codes. And around 2011, they realized, I don't need to be a kid in the basement cracking code and knowing all this stuff. I wrote it. I could package it and sell it to thousands of people and have them go and do it, and we can split in the profits. And that is where malware as a service, ransomware as a service began. And when it started, it took off like the best stock you could ever think of, like the best crypto thing you could ever think of. So much so that since 2013, there has been more money in cybercrime than in the international drug trade. Let me re-say that. There's more money in cybercrime than in the international drug trade. And it's been that way since 2013, year after year after year. And when we think of how much money there is in the international drug trade, we all see those movies, right? That pales in comparison. The other thing is that they're winning. We've mentioned this before. 80% of the chief security people involved on behalf of clients that were involved in data breaches last year, 80% said that when they learned of the data breach that they were involved in, they themselves and their team and their tools and all the stuff that they invested in were not the ones that discovered it. They said, we first learned about it through the media, through social media, or from law enforcement. What that means is the heads of security that work for us, right, are finding out about the data breach when we read about it in the papers, or when we see it online, or when we see a post about it. That's their first notice of it. And it's on their systems. That kind of shows, it demonstrates how skewed the scales are. When we said that cybercrime is well funded, it really is. When we think of the big tech companies, name them, like Tesla, Google, right? Facebook, Amazon, right? All the money that they make, it added up last year to $1.4 trillion. A lot of money. The international drug trade, all the drug trade, illegally all over the world, added up to 2.2 trillion. So there's more money in illegal drugs than there is in all of that technology. And yet cybercrime eclipsed them all. Cybercrime last year was over $3.5 trillion. So what does that mean? It means they are well organized. And when we say well organized, we mean they're organized very much like the mafia and the way that we understand the mafia to be, right? There's the head family, there's the head people that own the code, that have the name, that broker everything. And then they have captains, they have lieutenants, and then they have people that are the digital mercenaries. And none of them know each other. And why is that? It's that way because when we hear in the news, oh, they caught somebody from that big ransomware gang, or they caught somebody here, they're catching the people that are down below that are actually executing on it, but they don't even know who they're working for. They've never met them. They've never talked to them. They don't know their true identity. And that way, they're able to kind of keep their organization alive, even if they rename it sometimes. And these groups have personalities. These groups have brands. There's one group called the Shadow Brokers. Mark, what's one of the popular ones that are really big? You like their name?
Fuzzy Panda, Wizard Spider.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of these criminal organizations have some funky names, right? Sometimes they name them after the code, like Lockbit. There's Lockbit 1.0, and then they got better. It was Lockbit 2.0, and then they got really good, which is where they are today, and it's Lockbit 3.0. Lockbit 3.0 is the group, as you are aware, that breached the Sick Kids Children's Hospital in Canada. And then after they realized that, they gave the decrypt key to the hospital, right? Saying that the affiliate, the low-level digital mercenary, violated their rule. Their rule is that they're only going after financial institutions and they don't want to cause harm. There are reasons behind why they did that. It was still the right thing to do. But LockBit 3.0 has issued proclamations by their sites, and we'll get into this about when we talk about the dark web, but they advertise and they recruit relentlessly for those digital mercenaries. And the money that they offer is remarkable. It's not buy a new house, buy a new car type money. This is buy an island type money. This is buy a Learjet type money. They recruit, they have contests, they have a tattoo contest, who can get the best LockBit tattoo contest, things like that. The organization that Mark and I are with have actually involved people that have gotten on the dark web and spoken with the actual people, the people at the very top. And we learned about their brand, how they go to market, what their plans are, and things like that. Why? Not to condone what they do, but we have to understand it. We have to understand why that group that sits over in the Eastern Bloc in Europe is coming after a small organization outside in a suburb of Ontario, right? And in a suburb of Toronto. Why is that, right? There's reasons for that. We're going to get into it. Other ones are called the shadow brokers. They took down a telecom system for 6 weeks and they issued a proclamation. They said, we have no country or border. When online you enter our world, we are in control. And what that shows is just a segment of the personalities that we're all up against. In Canada, you've got the PIPEDA, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but it governs all private companies. Depending on what industry you're in, you may have other compliance organizations, but and there's also the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, the CFIB. We work with different members of that. Occasionally, we realize that last year, the small to mid-sized businesses, under $100 million a year in revenue, they were targeted 45% by random attacks. Okay, that means when they were doing massive blasts of phishing or malware attacks, 45% got caught up in that. 27% actually were involved in targeted attacks, which means they're looking at you. And even though you might have 5 employees, they're looking at you. Right. And that's more of a targeted attack. 1 in 10 of all of them were targeted with business email compromise attacks. It's also called whaling there in Canada. And it's CXO fraud. It's CEO fraud, CFO fraud, whatever the C-suite is. If it's an education institution, it's the head of the school, right? It's whoever is in top leadership. And it's fraud where they impersonate those people. How do they do that, and why is it believable, and why is it so effective? Here's a perfect example. Mark, you're going to go and you are presenting at an event, right? You're going to go and speak at an event. What do? We put it on social media. We're proud of our leader going to go do it. Good job, Mark. We put it on Facebook. We put it on Instagram. We put it on LinkedIn, right? We're proud of that. Guess what? Hackers see that too. It's online, and they will know the date, the time, etc., and they will be able to send emails that will look just like they're from Mark, from everybody that works for Mark. And what they'll do is they'll say, hey, I'm over at this event. I'm just about to go on. It's going great. I forgot to get this vendor paid. Can you please do this? It's for this big deal. Or can you send these W-2s over? We really need them sent. Here's the information. I'll circle back with you tomorrow. And people are busy and they get this, and it looks like it's from Mark, and it sounds like it's speaking like him, and there's no typos. It sounds just like him, and it's mentioning the event that he's at, that I know he's at because we talked about it this morning, right? That's business email compromise, except that the invoice, the vendor, the invoice that they'll have will have different routing instructions, right? Or the information that it'll be sent to will be fraudulent. That's kind of the whole point. And then vendor and HR related phishing attacks. And we'll get into what phishing is and stuff. I think most of you understand what that is, but that's the number one top risk. Why is that? because we're the number one cause of the data breaches. These are, for those of you old enough to remember the princess from Nigeria that used to email us offering us 10 pounds of gold if we just can, they want to send it to us, right? Those days have long gone. The emails today are outstanding. They know what vendors we use. They know that we use this type of line of business application. They know exactly what we're doing on a daily basis. Some of it is because we curate our own lives online. Some of it is because they have really good research mechanisms to be able to identify every software that every organization, every private business uses. There's digital footprints. And so they really focus on that. And one thing to consider is when you do business, what do you request of your vendors? Meaning, if somebody wants to do business and you're going to award them business, maybe it's your HVAC business in your office. Maybe it's the landscaping business. Maybe it's a supplier of something, right? Are you ever talking about cybersecurity with them? And most people say no, and that's okay. But that has to change. And the reason is because look at some of the largest data breaches, right? One of the largest data breaches that happened 2 weeks ago, right? It wasn't them, it was their vendor. The Target breach, which was one of the largest in histories, wasn't Target, right? They broke into Target and took hundreds of millions of dollars because of their HVAC vendor. And so having those relationships and knowing, having some understanding of what do you do, because you're going to have access to our systems. What do you do about security? It's sometimes the organizations that are considering that don't always just judge a contract or a vendor relationship on price. They do it on the social responsibility or the cybersecurity responsibility and culture that is integrated into that vendor. So again, if there's any questions at all, please submit them into the chat. We're happy to address. There's absolutely no such thing as a dumb question. What we're going to do is we're going to show a couple of videos today. We're going to show you a video of how fast social engineering can occur. And then we're going to show you what happens when you actually click on a phishing email. And then later on, we're going to show you a true story of a massive ransomware attack.
Hackers are everywhere. From Ashley Madison to JP Morgan, from Jennifer Lawrence to the federal government, our biggest celebrities, corporations, and institutions have all been the targets of devastating cyber attacks. I wanted to see how bad a hack can get. So I invited a few of the world's best hackers to try to hack me and show me where my vulnerabilities are. And now I'm going to meet them in Las Vegas at DEF CON, the biggest hacker convention of the year, and see what they found. This might not have been the best idea. DEF CON is the biggest hacker convention of the year. It's a place where thousands of hackers come to hear talks, to demonstrate their newest hacks. It's actually a place that's so dangerous to be on the internet that they tell you to turn off the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth on your phone. And they tell you not to use the ATMs too, because those could be hacked as well. This is the DEF CON ballroom. This is sort of the main room where things are happening, and it's pretty wild. I think this is car hacking village. This car is locked. Can you get me in?
I'll unlock it for you. Should be good.
Hacking is no longer like this fringe activity, and if you are at DEF CON, there's a good chance that you're here because you want to learn what could happen to you or your company.
Anyone here first time in the SCCTF? Holy crap.
I invited Chris to hack me with his team, but they're going to hack me using social engineering, which is essentially hacking without any code. They just use a phone and an internet connection.
We help people with human security issues by testing vulnerabilities for like a network test, but it's for the people network. We test those vulnerabilities, see where the holes are, and then help people learn so they can patch them.
Can we try some of this? Can we try some?
Yeah.
See if it works?
Yeah, we probably could have our star visher here make some phone calls as
Let's do it.
Sure. Do you want to do a sample phishing call?
What's phishing?
Phishing is voice solicitation, and basically what you do is you use the phone to extract information or data points that can be used in a later attack.
Let's do it. Who are you gonna call?
Maybe I'll call your cell phone provider
Okay.
and see if I can get them to give me your email address.
I bet they're good. I bet they have my back. But yeah, go for it.
I'm gonna spoof from your number, so it's gonna look like it's calling from you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me okay? My baby, I'm sorry. my husband's like, we're about to apply for a loan and we just had a baby and he's like, get this done by today. So I'm so sorry. I can't call you back. I'm trying to log into our account for usage information and I can't remember what email address we used to log the account. The baby's crying and can you help me? Awesome.
In just 30 seconds,
gmail.com?
Jessica gets my personal email address.
Now, if I needed to add our older daughter on our account so she could call in and make changes, how would I need to go about doing that? You would have to send me a secure PIN through a text message? Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't think I'll be able to receive a text message if I'm on the phone. Shh. Oh, I'm not on there either? So I thought when we got married, he added me to the account. Okay, my
Jessica
name is
uses my girlfriend's name and a fake social security number
5127.
to set up her own personal access to my account.
Wait, I'm sorry, so there's no password on my account right now? Can I set that up?
She even gets the support person to change my
Thank you
password.
so much for your help today.
So she just basically blocked me out of my own account.
I'll get her fed after this.
So they just gave you access to my entire.
So
Sorry, that's hilarious.
yeah, it's pretty remarkable. So that's over at DEF CON, and if you ever have time to get to Las Vegas, go to DEF CON because
That's the great part about that video is that it's a complete true story that really happened. There was it was one take, and that's how it all went down.
Yeah,
and DEF CON is a real thing. People come all over the globe to attend this. And again, it goes back to the misunderstanding of the term hacker. All those people that were there are hackers. Now, some were probably threat actors, but for the most part, those are all good people that help us in our day-to-day lives by the things that they invent and take apart. So that, there's a lot to unpack there, but you can see how easy that people can be socially manipulated to give up information that they normally wouldn't under any other given circumstance. And it happens that quick.
Yep. And now we're going to show the rest of the video, which is what happens when you actually click on a phishing email.
Entire cell phone account.
You're gonna have to go on and change your password now because it's Jess, my name.
And all it took was a crying baby and a phone call.
Yes.
I really thought that my cell phone company would protect me. I mean, like, this is the most basic stuff, and they're not doing it. And if they're not doing it, you know all these other businesses aren't doing it either. Anyone with a phone and an internet connection can do social engineering. But I was curious, what can a hacker with serious coding skills do?
Well, DEF CON is the world's biggest hacking convention. It's hacking everything, hacking social, hacking hardware, hacking software, hacking various systems.
I asked Dan Tentler, a well-known security researcher, to turn all of his firepower on me.
I did get into quite a number of things that I found.
So what were the first things you did? How did you start hacking me?
I quickly found your Squarespace blog and had an idea. Basically what I did was created a bogus Squarespace site and sent an email to you, a phish asking you to go to this website, run this certificate installer.
And I did it, because I'm an idiot.
So once you ran that, it gave me access to your computer, and I created several fake pop-ups that looked like system pop-ups that would ask you for your credentials.
You didn't even have to have my passwords.
No, you gave them to me.
I gave them to you.
Yeah. So I stole your 1Password keychain,
And 1Password is where I store all my other passwords. So effectively by...
And your social security number and your Amex stuff and all your stock trading and bank information. I can send email to everyone in this room as you. I am you right now, if I want it to be. If my evilness is working correctly, it should actually be taking pictures of your desktop and pictures through your webcam every 2 minutes. And I have been watching you for about 2 days now. In coffee shops, at your mom's house, on a plane. Here's you editing stuff. There's you like.
Oh my God! So this is literally
every 2 minutes
through my webcam.
Yeah, through this guy.
How badly could you have messed up my life?
I could have made you homeless. I could have made you homeless and penniless.
How?
Like,
how would you make me homeless?
Like I have control of your digital life in its entirety. I have all your credentials. I have all your access to all your financial information, all your work information, all your personal information. I can pay people with your bank account or your Amex account. I am you. I can fully impersonate. Like the only thing I couldn't doctor would be like your fingerprints.
This is like as bad as it gets.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's bad.
So it turns
out that Dan Tentler is good at his job, but it didn't take much, right? It was really just a phishing email that they clicked on. And it just goes to show it all kind of depends on what type of payload, what type of malware that they want to attach. But we're going to get into kind of what to look for next. Mark, you want to walk us through this slide quickly, just so that we can kind of understand why we're all a target?
Right. Now, this is a really good indication. Let me just start at the top. You know, we think of the web as things like Google and Reddit, places we shop online. That, as big as the web is, the surface web is only about 4% of what actually exists online. So you may have heard the term deep web and dark web. So deep web is the largest percentage of what's actually out there on the internet, but it's not indexed. It's not searchable. You can't find it. But it's things like legal documents, research, other information that's available to specific organizations. But then you have the dark web. And this is the reason that we are a target, because on the dark web, that's where all the nefarious activity takes place. That's where your credentials are sold. That's where your identity is sold. That's where things like your social security number are sold. There's a lot of different information that takes place down there. Well,
most people think that the social security number is sacred and it's really worth a lot of money, but that's really not the case, is it?
No. Like a PayPal account is worth upwards of $247. Your medical records, and this is the reason HR is a very specific target, because HR records are worth more money than just about any other personal information about you. And this is all traded in real time out in the open on the dark web. And that's why they're coming after us, because they want our credentials, they want our identity, they want our personal information.
Right. And small businesses, when we talk to small business owners, right, or educators, sometimes they're like, well, we're a small group. Why would they want anything from us? Well, we have a CRM platform, right? We have employees, we have information. If we can get hundreds of clients' information or thousands, we could sell it for $450 a record, right? Or $200 a record. You just multiply how many records they have, and there's quite a bit of money that gets sold on the dark web. Let's talk about social engineering and kind of how they get in, right? When we think of social engineering, what we've done is we've sat down with leaders throughout all of the different facets of the industry, right? From cyber criminals, Brett Johnson is the original cybercrime godfather. That term was denoted by the U.S. Secret Service. He went to federal prison, came out, and he now protects organizations in spotting account takeover scams, things like that. Chris Roberts is the chief security officer for Boom Supersonic Planes. He's also a well-known speaker at DEF CON and at other hacker conventions. He's a well-known hacker who has hacked the Mars rover, NASA, and things like that, the International Space Station, and he provides cybersecurity advice to organizations so that they can stay safe. Darren Mott is a former cyber special agent with the FBI. We sat down with him in preparation for today, as well as Dr. Abby Morono. Dr. Abby Morono is a leading neuroscientist that talks about why we click on links, why we fall for social engineering, and the neuroscience behind it and what we can do to stay safe. What they all agree is that we are the biggest risk to our organizations. We do things like manage our passwords poorly, right? We all know what we're supposed to do for passwords. It's supposed to be pretty long, it's supposed to be kind of complicated, things like that. People don't really pay attention to that. They might come up with a really good password, right? And you've got a good one, and that's good. And what do? You kind of write it down, keep it on your desk, or you might use some type of like Word document that you have it on, and things like that. The biggest risk to passwords is reusing them. Okay. The worst error that we all do is when we get a good password, and we've got some resources that we're going to leave you guys with today on how you can check how good your password is, how you can check whether you've been breached, and what you can do to protect your own credit and those of that of your family. We'll get to that in just a second. But in terms of passwords, the biggest mistake we all do is we'll come up with a really good one, and then we'll use it on more than one site. And that's the mistake. Why? Because when you click on cookies on that site, what you don't know is they are selling your data. And so when you do a search, we're going to give you resources you guys can take home, and you can go and see if you've been part of whether your email address has been tied to a data breach. You'll be shocked to find, I guarantee you, probably 100% have, or very close to that. And you'll probably be involved in a data breach with a brand or an organization that you don't know of. And why is that? It's because you went to this site, but that site sold your information to another site, and then they sold that information to another site. It's mostly done for marketing so that they can sell you stuff. But the problem is how do we know what cybersecurity practices they have, right? And a lot of them are poor, and they get breached. So when they get breached, guess what? They have your email, they have your password, they have your address, they might have credit card information, depending on what you put on that site. All that information gets sold. We're going to get into how you can check on that. The other issue post-pandemic more than anything is remote workers, right? Remote workers, people that work remotely are the biggest risk to an organization's brand. Why is that? Because even though we're coming in through a firewall to our corporate entity, right? Or to our school or to our government entity, whatever it might be, the point is the only thing that's protecting us from criminals, right, is our crack ISP, our firewall that the cable company gives you, right? It's not enterprise grade. You're not shelled and protected like you are when you're actually at the office. The other thing is shadow IT. When we think of shadow IT, that is us bringing in devices that our IT team doesn't know about, saving documents to our iCloud or to our Google Drive, our personal ones, mixing personal and business. And all of those are different configurations that the IT team doesn't know about. If they don't know about it, they can't even begin to manage it or put security tools on there. The other issue is public Wi-Fi. Mark, you want to talk quickly about public Wi-Fi?
This is something best to avoid at all costs, really. With these unlimited data plans and such that we have on cellular now, that just don't use public Wi-Fi. And the reason that is because you're never 100% sure that you're actually on that public band. Right. What I mean by that is people will turn up a remote Wi-Fi spot. They'll name it for whatever store that you may happen to be in. They'll make the landing page look exactly like theirs, and they'll pass your traffic through out to the internet. But what they're doing is they're logging all your keystrokes that you conduct while you're going out on the internet. So while you're doing that, you may go check your bank account, and then the next string of information you enter is probably your your username. The next string after that is going to be your password. So what they do is collect that information. And before you can log off, they've gone back to that dark web that we talked about and sold your credentials. And you haven't even turned off your computer yet. So just don't use public Wi-Fi if you can ever help it.
Yeah, when we mention public Wi-Fi, what we mean is if you're at the Starbucks or the Tim Hortons or the airport or the hotel, right? And yeah, places like that. Yeah. Use a VPN, use your cell phone hotspot, which is encrypted. Do something other than using that public Wi-Fi, because the public Wi-Fi is there for convenience. It's not there for security. Deanne just had a great question. What if you use public Wi-Fi and are using the internet incognito mode? Does that better protect you? Great question. The answer is no, it does not.
Unfortunately not.
No, incognito mode, like when you think of Google Chrome incognito mode, what that does is that limits what people are able to see if they get on your device and look for your history. Okay. If you use a VPN or a search such as DuckDuckGo or other private browsers, what they do is they do not disclose your IP address, right? But it's still indexed. So none of that is really protecting you. Using a VPN.
Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question, right? But incognito mode only kind of keeps other people that could access your device from seeing your history. It doesn't limit or increase your protection from external threat actors. So we've already shown that video. We showed the second part of that video. So let me go to the next slide. There we go. So now let's talk about spotting a fish real quick. I want to be cognizant of the time. So let me do that. And then we're going to show you a true story of a ransomware attack. Are you all able to see this? What do you guys think? Is this a legitimate email or is this a fish? And if it's a fish, why is it a fish?
I don't know. It looks pretty legitimate, David.
Let's see where. It's even as a domain-based email address. It appears to be anyway.
Top, yeah.
That's very good.
Yep.
It's very good. This is a fish, right? It is used in the language that a bank would use, right? And when you have to understand, if you don't do business with SunTrust Bank, you're not going to get this, right? But if you do business with, I don't know, Bank of America or one of the leading banks or a regional credit union or whatever, one of the local banks there where you live, you'll get an email that'll look and sound just like this from them. It'll be branded by them. It will have people's names that might be online that they can find, right? And they'll have it. What they'll do, though, is create this. And when you go and you click on it or when you call that number, right, it is a payload. Okay. The only way for you to have told that this is a fish is by looking at where it's from. When you look at where it's from, it's SunTrust at secure@suntust.com. There's no R. It's the little changes that allows them to create a fraudulent URL and then prevent or create a fraudulent site in which they can then send these emails.
Yeah, we had a couple people in the chat really identify some other ones that normally a lot of attendees don't pick up on. The lowercase c, some of the language.
Very good.
So really good job. That's
very good.
Yeah, a lot more observant than what a lot of people see.
Yeah, red flags to look for are this, right? Time of day. Always look for the from, where it's from. Make sure that it's actually from the location that says it's from. Hover your mouse over the link and make sure it's actually going to the proper URL. It's actually going to the place that it claims to be. The other thing is anytime that it asks for something detrimental and there's a sense of urgency, that's a red flag. No bank, nobody is going to say you have 24 hours to do something or you have 48 hours to do something. Otherwise, something bad is going to happen. That is a telltale sign. That's what we talk about when we talk about situational awareness. So when you're busy and you see this and you start to panic, what are you supposed to do? Again, like what Dr. David Mauro talked about, is we have to pause. And the reason is this: phishing emails, social engineering attempts, they focus on creating amygdala hijack. Okay, this is why there's an art and a science to this. There is a science behind why this is so effective. And it's because the way our brains operate, right? They create that amygdala hijack. And what that is that's our flight or fight mechanism, right? And it blocks our rational thought process, right? So you have to pause. You have to pause. And by pausing for about 20, 30 seconds, it literally stops the amygdala hijack from happening and lets your neocortex work. By letting your neocortex work, you can say, hey, that's interesting. Why would they be calling me at work? Why would they reach out to me at work? That's odd. Maybe I should like hover my mouse over this and do this. What they focus on, why they call, why they do this, and why they always have a sense of urgency is to catch you before you're able to calm down so that you'll act. Because while it's easy for us to sit here now and say, you got to look for this, got to look for that, got to look for that, in the moment when we're distracted, right? We don't do that. And if they cause amygdala hijack, we're not going to be able to process that rationally. That's kind of the science behind it. So now we're going to look at another one, and this is a true story. This is the actual email that was involved. The name has been changed, obviously, but this is a CEO who we're going to see actually lost their job. And this is an email that was sent to his team about his next quarter plans. He was very excited about it. And in there, this is all his accurate information right here. It was sent to the actual team. Can anybody tell what's wrong with this one?
Email address, Qualicart, not Qualicart.
Bingo.
Nice.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, but one of the issues is if you're looking at it on a phone, right, you might not see it. But most phones, all iPhones, all Samsung now, allow you to hover your thumb over the links in an email as well as the from in the email so that you can actually tell. That's exactly right. So now let's watch and find out what all happened here.
How did you decide to become a hacker?
Well, I'm not really sure what it means to become a hacker. That's like some guy in a hoodie who types really fast and stays up all night writing code and cracking passwords. It's not me. I just spy on people and see what makes them click. It's not a bad job.
Mark Hanning, CEO of Qualicart, set to report earnings after their blockbuster IPO.
So you consider this a job?
I put a lot of work into this. I'm not lazy. It takes research to figure out the key players, learn all about them, their families, their friends, what they care about. You have to understand the company's organization. I get a lot of my information from the sales department because they're always so quick and eager. They're hungry. People trust too easily. They don't look at the details. I do. Details matter. That's what I'm good at. It has to look completely believable. It has to look familiar. This is where research is important. It's not some generic piece of spam. It's an email from their boss with their company signature. It's written in the voice of the boss. It's what he would say if he were writing this.
What about the malware itself? How does that work?
Somebody else out there already wrote all the code that does the actual attack. I'm just using it in the attachment. My skill is in my ability to get a bunch of people to click on that attachment. I always wonder what it's like when the whole thing unfolds on their end, when the panic sets in.
Please leave your message after the beep.
Hey,
Hey, this is Rajiv in finance. Call me as soon as you get this. Something's up with my laptop. I can't.
Katie, are you on your way into the office? Something's going on with our file servers.
Karen in HR, our benefits dashboard seems really slow. We're getting calls from users on it. Can you call when you get this? Joining conference now.
Apparently, there's a malware attack targeting our main...
It's ransomware. They're holding us hostage. We're locked out of everything. I can't even check my phone. What about the backup?
That will take days.
We need this fixed now. Pay it. We don't have a choice. We're reporting earnings in 2 hours.
But how do we know that they'll...
Pay it. Put every single person on getting us back up and running. That's the only priority now. Okay, it's done. I have the decrypt key. Mark, we have a big problem. The ransomware was just to distract us. They got inside. They got everything. Customer data, financials, everything.
Qualicards is reeling today from the news that hackers have released the personal information of nearly
The
2
Nasdaq
million
closed lower today, led by Qualicard, which was down 14% on news that the recent data breach may be far worse than the company
Its stock
originally
fell
acknowledged.
to a new all-time low on news that CEO Mark Hanning is stepping down after what is turning out to be one of the worst breaches of personal information in recent history.
Do you feel bad about releasing the personal information? All the financials? All the money that was lost?
All I did was get the files. I'm not the one that decided to release them. I'm not the one that shorted the stock. Somebody else had their reasons for that. It's above my pay grade. I was paid to do a job, and I did it well. And that's what's expected of anyone, isn't it? Anyway, markets bounce back.
Okay, so let's unpack that real quick. What that showed is a true story, and it was really pretty devastating. What it also showed was that organized crime element, right? She had her role. She didn't even know. She didn't even buy the code. She didn't even create the code. It's not like she's a hacker, but she didn't even create the code. She bought that, right? And that was from that organized crime unit. They split the profits, but also she didn't even know that somebody was going to short the stock. She wasn't even involved in transferring the funds. There's all these different elements and layers. And unfortunately, we're the targets. So what can we do? One of the questions that was just asked, I addressed some of the questions on cookies. Do not accept cookies, right? I know it's a hassle. It takes a while to go through, uncheck your cookie selection, etc. Do not accept cookies because that is where they will ultimately get all of your information. But we're going to tell you how to address the fact that we've already clicked on a bunch of cookies in the past. So what can we do? Well, let's talk personally and then let's talk organizationally. Organizationally meaning what do we do about our business? Personally, use a password manager, okay? Even though LastPass and the other one, Norton's, were involved in general, using a password manager or using a password authenticator, an individual key that you can buy, that is really key. Or you can do a best practice that we recommend, and that is simply remember an algorithm. What's an algorithm? It's a simple phrase that you salt or pepper the data afterward. This is what I've done for years. Meaning you can use Ontario hashtag 100. Just use Ontario hashtag 100. Ontario hashtag 100 link for LinkedIn. Ontario hashtag 100 face for Facebook. Ontario hashtag 100 work for my work email. Ontario hashtag 100 Gmail for my Gmail email. That is, salting means you put the name or random numbers in the beginning of the algorithm, and peppering means you put it at the end. What that does is for the next quarter, all I have to remember is Ontario hashtag 100. And no matter where I'm logging in, I'm just going to type the name of the thing that I'm logging into. It's a really easy way of remembering. The length and the complexity you can find. We're going to give you a site in just a second where you can find is outstanding. And I don't have to rely on some other company to keep our data safe, right? Because if they get that password, right, they're going to be able to get all of our passwords. And I don't have to worry about anybody finding it on my Post-it note at work. right? That's one recommendation. The other thing is, and by doing that algorithm and by using a password manager, both of these get accomplished. And that is this: do not reuse password. You can't, right? Because once your data is sold, right, and it's for sale on the dark web, they have that really good password. And then they can target your organization and get in as you, or target you yourself. The other thing is multi-factor authentication. You can use it personally as well as at work. It's an absolute must. Having something that uses Google Authenticator or another authenticator where they have to verify somehow. Multi-factor authentication, Duo has a great product. There's a whole bunch of different product lines out there. But multi-factor authentication on all of the available apps, not just on the firewall. Multi-factor authentication is really, really key. Learning how to spot a fish. There are a lot of great free resources online that can help you learn to kind of understand how to spot a fish, because the phishing campaigns change and they evolve over time. They get better and better and better. So really kind of having that awareness. Also kind of understanding that situational awareness, paying attention to yourself. If you get caught up and somebody's asking you to do something and it's against your interests or against your organization's interests, they're asking me to send a whole bunch of W-2s. Do I do that? Do I verify? Don't act in the moment. Pause. Like get up from the chair or just pause. Think about it, right? By thinking about it, it's easy for us to just say, think, don't click. Okay, everybody knows that. What's great is that if everybody knows it, right, why is it 83% of all the breaches are still caused by it? Because we don't know it. We hear it, but it doesn't stick with us. We don't remember it at the time we need to, and we're not changing our behavior. And so really kind of having that pause happen so that our neocortex, our rational brain, can actually take over and then look at it objectively. And what should we do before we get done? I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call the person that's asking me to do that. Are you actually asking me to do this? You really want me to get gift cards? Like, you really want me to do this? Like, just speak to the human, right? Walk down the hall, knock on their door virtually, get them on your Teams chat or text them individually on a number that you know is theirs, right? That's really key. And here, we're going to show you, we're going to give you the links to do this. Please freeze your credit. Please freeze your credit. Freeze your children's credit, freeze your credit, okay? It's a free thing to do. It's relatively simple, it's relatively painless, and it will stop anybody from being able to take loans out or get credit on your behalf. I can't tell you how many organizations we deal with where they hadn't freezed their credit and they go to file their taxes only to find out that their 16-year-old had already filed taxes. Well, why did they file taxes? They didn't, right? It's because somebody they found the Social Security number, they filed the tax returns, and they got the refund on their behalf. It's identity theft, right? By freezing your credit, it blocks identity theft. All of your kids need their credit frozen, okay? It's an absolute must. The other thing is remove your private identifiable information, your PII, from the data brokers, from the people that buy that. How do you do that? We have a link. It literally takes you 5 minutes. You go in, you select the country that you're from, and within 2 weeks, all of those prior cookies that you've clicked on get removed. So we're going to show you how to do that. Organizationally, what should you do? Well, I don't know each of your individual organizations, but as a general rule of thumb, I can tell you exactly what you should do. You need to have an independent security assessment. And when we say an independent security assessment, we mean like a penetration test, an independent one, not from your IT provider, right? An independent one, right? Or an independent overall security assessment. You need to have this done. And what's key is to understand the difference between security and IT. A lot of smaller organizations feel secure because their IT person or their IT team has told them that they are. most IT teams focus on fixing the PC. They focus on making sure I can reset my password, making sure we're operational. They help us leverage advances in technology, right? That's IT. It's not security. Security are special analysts that look for anomalies, that look for odd things, that are not looking to see whether the servers and switches and routers are working right and functional so that you're productive. They're actually looking for odd things and anomalies. And a lot of business owners believe that the IT team does that. Well, I have a team and they said that they're monitoring my network. Well, they are, but what are they monitoring for? They're monitoring to make sure it's on, to make sure that the disk space is okay, to make sure it's healthy, right? To make sure it has standard security on it, meaning like antivirus. But that's it. That's all IT does. Security teams are a different group, right? It's organized different. They're different types of vendors. And they actually look for the movement of data, right? They're looking for things that are odd, meaning why is somebody accessing and downloading a terabyte of data to Pakistan? We don't have an office in Pakistan. What are they doing? Why are they doing it at 2:00 in the morning? The IT team's not going to know it. They're not going to see that. Okay. They're not going to be able to view that because they're the IT team. The servers didn't go down. They're not going to be alerted. It's the security team and the security services and organizations that will actually be watching those odd things. Real quick example is, let's say you take a road trip with your family and you're 4 hours from your house and you swipe your card in a gas pump, right? And all of a sudden you get a text from your bank that says your card was just used 4 hours away. Was this you? How did they know that? I could buy things online from all different countries and they'll never text me. How did they know that? Because it's different. It's odd. They look at behavior, right? They look at spending patterns and behavior. Whenever there's a deviation, that's the type of thing. Those are the anomalies people need to watch for. Another thing that small, mid-sized businesses, as well as enterprise organizations tend to do this on a regular basis, but you need to have policies, right? Who can use what, who can access what data, things like that. But you need to embrace war games. What war games are is an exercise. Once a year, everybody, leadership, owners, right, and the IT team, take a couple hours and actually walk through what happens if it all goes down. What happens? And you block all the phone calls and you actually do an exercise. There are a number of different ways of doing it. It's very, very critical because otherwise what happens is a massive ransomware attack will happen no matter what size you're at, and nobody knows, like, are we supposed to, who do we call? What do we do? Do we call our lawyers? What do we do? Do we have to tell anybody? Do we have to notify? Do we not have to? Who's going to notify? Who does this? And you're already in amygdala hijack and you're not thinking rationally. By practicing that once a year, it has changed the trajectory of the small businesses that are doing it. It's a really, really helpful thing. You just need to want to do it. You just need to want to care about it. The other thing is to really focus organizationally, obviously, multi-factor authentication, have systems in place, but really work on having a security culture. And when we say a security culture, everybody understands how important it is to have a good culture, right? And I mean a culture, I mean from leadership down. What do we stand for? What's our mission? Not just to make money. That's a result. It's always a result. What's our mission? What's our cause? What are we trying to do? What impact are we trying to make, right? Why are we inspiring people to do things, right? And part of that culture needs to have a security component, because especially in small business, mid-sized businesses that are growing and they're capturing market share and it's getting exciting, they tend not to look at their blind spots and they tend to get taken down. I think it's absolutely tragic when a great organization closes its doors. it's heartbreaking for me. Like, I think honestly, it's like a dream that dies. Like, there's people's mortgages that are gone. Like, there are kids that don't get to go to college now because of that, because of data breaches. It's bad. And so having that security culture, working on it. We've got resources we have attached. We've got QR codes. We'll send out some information. QR codes have got links to a bunch of these different resources. And here's some of them. You can test your passwords at this link that we put in. Okay, you can test if you don't want to. They don't keep track of your passwords, so that you know. But if you don't feel comfortable, put it something that's just like your password, right? Put it in. It'll tell you how long it would take a hacker to compromise that password. Sometimes it's a millisecond. Sometimes it's 30 seconds. Sometimes it's 5 trillion years, and that's how you know that's really good. And why is that, Mark? What it was of the 1.4 billion data breach passwords that were analyzed, what was the number one password that was used by people?
The number one password globally, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Or an even more complex one, password.
Right. That's the number 2 password used. I kid you not. And we wonder why they're winning. Right. Or some of the other ones, depending on what region we're looking at, some of the other ones, if it's in Green Bay, Wisconsin, right? Guess what? A bunch of those passwords are like Packers rule, right? Like whatever sports team is big in that area. A lot of people do that, or they do names of their pets, or they do things like that. Why is that a bad idea, right? Because we curate our lives online. If I'm a Packers fan, you're going to know it. Look me up, right? You're going to see us at games. You're going to see the banner. You're going to see stuff like that, right? We're going to know. Hackers are going to be able to evaluate that. As we've seen in the videos, they watch that. So check your strength of your passwords. To remove all of your PII data from the data brokers, there's the link right there. And I'll send this out as a PDF. You can literally just click right on it. And it's safe. I promise you can click on these links. But you do that, it takes 5 minutes. You just put in your country code. There's a prompt there. And they will, within 2 weeks, they will remove all of your personal information from those data brokers. That's where your data got sold after you click those cookies. So that's your protection after that. To see if you've been breached, there's a website called Have I Been Pwned? Okay, that is a great website. Put it in there. I was shocked. I had been involved in some breaches with companies I didn't even know I did business with, because I didn't, but my data had been sold to them and they didn't care about security, right? So that's something. If you're curious about the laws and the crimes and penalties for various breaches, that's in there as well. At least in the US, there's the IC3 that you can report a breach to. And if you see something, say something, there's the link to the FTC. Organizationally, you should always have in these exercises that you do when you practice, if you own a business or if you're in leadership at a business, you should know about your cybersecurity insurance policy and what it does and what it doesn't cover, right? And how hard it has gotten now. You should also be aware of who is your local federal law enforcement group, and maybe reach out to them. They always recommend reaching out. I know it's kind of weird to reach out to federal law enforcement, but it's always a good idea at least to know who they are and to have that name and number kind of listed there in case, like a bat phone, right? You can want to pick that up. Have your legal, have your HR kind of tied to that. And then your PR and your marketing team. Because as we all know, people don't want to do business with people that lose their private stuff. And so we want to seize the moment and catch things right away. Individually, you want to freeze your credit. So Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, these are the links and the numbers for you to do that, as well as to do that for any kids or incapacitated adults. And then any other information we've got, please reach out to us. You can connect to us on LinkedIn, as well as scanning the QR code that we'll get to and that we'll provide, and that will give you access to all of these resources. So I want to address any questions that are left over, and I want to thank you guys for your time. So we do this. We're happy to do this for anybody, anytime. We do this at no cost. We don't have an ulterior motive. We just have to level the playing field. And we thank everybody for their time and attention.
Stephen?
Yes.
If you could ask, how secure is Apple Password Manager? Is that secure?
Were you able to pick that question up, David?
Yeah, Apple Password Manager is actually pretty good. Even the Google Password Manager is actually pretty good. Now, I say that because it hasn't been breached yet. And we do know that LastPass just got breached. And we do know that the Norton Password Managers got breached. And I've been doing these for about 12 years now. And we used to always say those are really good because they've never been breached. And now in the last year they have. Finally, we kind of knew it was coming. But again, password managers are good. Nothing is better than the algorithm, in my opinion, because it's not anywhere other than in your head. But also there are good authenticators. There are password keys you can use, but they're a little slower, right? The password managers are very, look, I mean, Apple and Google, they do an excellent job. Both of them do an excellent job. So officially our recommendation is always you're safe using those.
Okay, one more question, Stephen. On the app, so say it's like a chartered bank in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
If they send you a message through the app or like your account suspended, and then you go to do the chat with them, how secure is that? It is an app. It is, say, like Bank of Montreal or CIBC. Is that safe to do that, or should you just phone your bank and check? What would you recommend?
I know it's inconvenient. Cybersecurity, to be secure, it takes a little inconvenience, but is it worth it, right? If you've ever been involved in a data breach, you'll know that it's worth it because you haven't lived until you've had to try and get Bitcoin at 3:00 in the morning for somebody. Like, it's not fun. Yeah, my recommendation there, while the app, an individual app, I don't know about, I haven't seen the code behind it. So I would assume if it's a bank, it's probably locked down and very secure. So you probably are safe, but I would always call. I would always just pick up the phone and call. And when you call, never ever call the number that's in the app. Never ever call the 800 number that's in an email. That is them. It's $10 a month to get a 800 number. They have the money and they have the people standing by and they will help you. But they are criminal adversaries. So please always open up a new window, do a search, and find that local number and talk to a live human and just verify. Is that helpful? Does that answer the question?
Perfect. Yeah. And just one last question.
Of course.
VPNs themselves, like the ones that are advertised, like NordVPN or whatever.
Yep.
Do those really protect us? I know they kind of hide. We can switch servers to check different things in different countries, different prices, but do they actually protect you?
Yeah, Nord actually is a preferred VPN because they're based in the Bahamas and they do not sell the data of the users. They do protect what a VPN does is it wraps code for the communication. Think of it like as a tunnel, right? So if I'm working from home and I'm logging into the corporate network, nobody can do a man in the middle or a person in the middle attack, right? They can't intercept that communication. That communication is housed with codes. It's very similar to using your cell phone hotspot because your cellular traffic is encrypted. Okay, so using that is very similar to using a VPN. You're usually able to do that. Now there are some exceptions to that, but in general, that's very good. Now the problem is this though, is if you're working from home or a private or a public network, right? And if you're on those networks or if you're on your Wi-Fi at home, right? Now depending on where you live, I don't have hackers in a van outside my house, so I'm not that worried about it. But if you're using a VPN in a public location, right? Someone else can still get to your laptop, right? And then they will go in through that VPN with you. Okay. And so whenever you're using public Wi-Fi, the recommendation is not to do anything confidential. But if you're going to do it, clearly don't open anything confidential until you are logged into the VPN. Does that make sense? Meaning, if I'm using a VPN and I'm on my banking, they can't get to me while I'm doing that. So that in and of itself would be safe.
David, can you comment on NFCs and unsecured networks?
Mark, do you have any comments on that? I mean, unsecured networks are very,
The reason I tell you that is that I was overseas and I was in a department store, an authentic, and I got on their unsecured network. Before you knew it, I was getting NFCs. I was getting all sorts of messages coming my way. I turned it onto airport mode and didn't use it again until I came home. I walked in the door, turned my phone on, and I got messages. And I go, how is that possible? And the NFC was on my wife's debit card. Took it, put it away, and my phone was fine. How does that happen?
It can happen a couple of different ways. There's a process known as SIM swapping. There's some other ways. SIM swapping is a little different, but SIM swapping, the way that works is they basically, all of our phones have a SIM card, right? And they're able to do SIM swapping virtually without having the physical card. And oftentimes they do it through code, malicious code, a link that we click on, or they do it through corruption of somebody that works at the phone company, like AT&T or somebody like that. And there's some famous cybercrime cases where people, especially with crypto, right? The people that buy and sell a lot of crypto, if anybody knows about, like, when you buy Bitcoin or whatever, you need the private keys, right? That's the only way for you to actually access that, because it's all left in blockchain. So you need the private keys. Well, those are usually in something that you can access from your phone. And so you'll know that you've been SIM swapped if all of a sudden your phone goes dead. So, or if you start to see odd behavior like that, or your phone goes dead, that means somebody else is acting as you. And everything that you could access from your phone, every email, every drive, everything where those private keys are, they can access that. And that with those private keys, they can transfer those funds over to their account, to their wallet, and then cash them out.
It's very obvious, though, that it came from
while you were on the unsecured
mimicking a
network.
store, trying to get into my phone, shut it down. As soon as the card was separated from the phone, everything stopped. I clicked on nothing.
Right. Yeah. It was the only thing I would say you might have done is you had join, like on your phone settings, you may have had join networks automatically, that setting. And that's a setting that should be turned off.
David, we had one of the attendees check the have I been pawned, and they were in a breach. So yeah, I would encourage everybody to use that website to see if you have. If you have, make sure if you're familiar with joining or logging into that website, make sure you're not using that password anymore, because that now resides on the dark web. Somebody's already bought that password regarding your web address or your email.
And variations of that password. So if your password was, I don't know, Toronto Maple Leafs 1, don't make it Toronto Maple Leafs 2, exclamation. It's still a variation of it, and they know that that's one that you've used. So they're going to check all the different variations. They have software that do billions of combinations within a couple seconds. Yeah. So you really want to test your password in that how strong is my password, and come up with like a passphrase, but different ones for different sites. That's really the key. Well, thank you, everybody.
Great questions. Great interaction.
And please feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn as you guys go and check on that. We're active on that platform. You can always reach us. There's no such thing as a dumb question. We're here to help.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, David. Thank you, Mark, for educating us and terrifying us at the same time.
That's the job, right? And look, just one final comment on that. And we're not here to spread fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Okay? FUD, we've heard that phrase. We're not doing it. The world is doing that. The world is doing that for us, right? We're just here to try and give you some ideas on how to stay safe.
No, I appreciate it. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I'd also like to acknowledge our platinum sponsors and thank them for the support as well that allows us
Absolutely.
to put on sessions like this one. AGFA, Asia Pulp and Paper, Canon, Durst, HP, Konica Minolta, Spicers, and Trinet Global Logistics, as well as our gold sponsors, Adobe, Fujifilm, Graphics Canada, Heidelberg, Kodak, and Kongsberg Precision Cutting Systems, as well as Sydney Stone, the silver sponsor. Thank you for HP for providing the facility and the technology today. And be sure to keep Wednesday, February the 15th open for our next meeting, which will be topic staffing, how to attract and keep good people, which is definitely something not just in our industry, but across many industries that we're facing today. So thank you for joining us today. We hope you found this educational and fun. In appreciation of David and Mark's time today, we're going to make a donation on behalf of David and Mark's behalf to the Canadian Scholarship Fund.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much, gentlemen. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Good job.
Thank you.
I'm really not Steve, by the way.
You can email me at Steve Cousins at Min Giants.
We had that, eh? So
Yep.
we had one of our executives